Hello, and welcome back to Fantasy Football with Amateurs. I'm Franksy, and today we're here to have a look at the 2021 draft team evaluations. Basically, right now, I'm just going to go through all 32 teams and just pick out all the players I would pick for my draft picks and just all the ones that I wouldn't pick, and just have a little talk about what I know from all my amateur experience. Rules of the league to get started is now this year we've added an extra people. We had two drop out, we added four, so it's now going to be a 12-team PPR league, which is pretty much the standard league around most places. Each team's got one quarterback, two receivers, two running backs, one tight end, two flex spots, a kicker, and a defense. And then we've got five bench spots to fill as well. As I'm going through these teams, talking about players, I'm organising them as well into like some ranks or categories. These don't necessarily relate to each other. It's more relate to how I group them. So when I do the next lot of videos and I go through each position, I've got them grouped by similar positions in the team. So they might not be the same skills. So I might have a every down back, which in one team is like top tier. Another team could be bottom tier, but they both have the same sort of role in the team. Same as I see a lot of numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4 is how I'll do it, but they're not going to make much of a difference really. Also, yes, this is a Dolphins hat. I'm not a Dolphins fan. Someone else in the house is. I am a Packers fan, as always, as you will tell later on in the video. So, let's get started then. So obviously, this will just be in team order, starting with the Arizona Cardinals. So obviously, Kyler Murray, I've put him down as an elite quarterback with rushing upside, so that goes down in my QB1 column. That's just going off last season with the numbers he put up, so he can just stay there where he is. Running backs, we've got Edmonds and Connor. Drake's gone, so Edmonds is a starter, but they've also brought in Connor, who did start quite a few games over at the Steelers. Edmonds is still the better back, but it doesn't mean Connor won't eat into his work. So Edmonds goes in the RB2 column for me, which is like the number one back on the team. Connor's going the RB3, which is the number 2 back. Looking over at the wide receivers, we've got D-Hop and we've got AJ Green. They're the only two I'd pick off the team. D-Hop is obviously a pretty good receiver. He was a top receiver. He goes in at the team's wide receiver 1, which is my WR2 column. AJ Green's an experienced player. He's going in at my second wide receiver on the team, which is WR3 column. No one else really interests me. I'm not interested in their tight ends. Kicker-wise, Matt Prater kicked at the Lions quite a bit, so I've seen him a lot. So I'd happily pick him for the team. Defense, the Cardinals. They did get JJ Watt in the offseason, but they did also lose a couple of good cornerbacks. I think one traded away, went on waivers. They've had another retired. So I'll still keep him on the list, but they'll be a bit lower down sort of thing. But it's a team I would consider if I got down that far. Anyway. Next up, Atlanta Falcons. So Matt Ryan, he's a starting QB, mainly passing. So he's going to go in my QB3 column. He'll have to throw a lot if it's something like last season. So that's a lot of fantasy points on the table just there. Running back wise, Mike Davis, up until they got Gallman, Mike Davis was pretty much the only back they had. So he was every down back. He was their team RB1, which goes in the 2 column. But recently they've got Wayne Gallman. He's got some experience. It does offer a bit of competition. He's not going to challenge him from the starting spot, though. I'm not really looking to draft him either. I'd rather get him off the waiver wire later in the season, if anything happens to Davis. But I'll put him on there just in case we somehow run out of running backs and I'm really desperate for someone in the draft. Wide receivers, we got Calvin Ridley. I put him down as an elite receiver. He's a top target. Julio Jones has gone as well, so he could have even more volume coming his way. So he goes down as WR1. And there's no other interesting to me wide receivers, except for Kyle Pitts. He's basically a wide receiver, but he's still a tight end. So tight end wise, everyone's raving about him. So I put him down as my elite tight ends. So he's gone down for TE1. He could also be starting out wide, which could also give room for Hayden Hurst. So I put Hayden Hurst down as the tight end 2 on the team, which is TN for TE4 in my numbers. If Pitts goes out wide or two tight out sets, he'll still get on the field. I'll see where I draft him. It won't be as high as others. I might even draft him if I get a couple of tight ends before him. Kicker-wise, Young Hoku. Last year, he was like phenomenal. There was a couple of weeks where he scored more points than other skill players on the team. If he can just keep doing his thing, then yeah, happily have him. Defense, no, I'm not really interested in the defense anyway. Before I go in, I'll quickly go through how I ranked the actual ranks. Wide receivers is easy. If I think it's an elite wide receiver, he's WR1. Whereas the rest, if he's going to be the number one receiver on the team, I put him down as 2. The number 2 receiver goes in 3, and the number 3 receiver goes in 4. That's just 4 columns for each position. Tight ends is the same, but similar. An elite tight end is tight end 1. If you're the number 1 tight end on the team and you're mainly a pass catching tight end, they'll go in tight end 2. If a number 1 receiver on the team, but they're not mainly a pass catching tight end, it'll be tight end 3. And if it's a number 2 tight end, it goes in 4. A good example of this might be Hawkinson for the Lions, where he's like a main target. He's going to be a main pass catcher. He's going to be a tight end 2. Whereas you've got a couple of other tight ends where they are the number 1 tight end of the team, but they're not used loads in the pass game. They would go in tight end 3. Can't think of any on the top of my head, but we'll get there's some exists in there anyway. For the running backs, elite running backs RB1. That's simple. Running back 1 is RB2 and running back 2 is RB3. If there's a committee of running backs and they're likely to share a lot of time, thinking of, say, the Bills, for example, they are listed down as RB4. And obviously, this is just like for when I sort it tomorrow. So an RB4 running back could be better than an RB3. The numbers don't matter. It just matters how I sort them. The last one to talk about is quarterbacks. I've got 2 columns for elite. If they're elite and they have a lot of rushing ability, they go at QB1. If they're elite and they don't rush much, they do a lot of their fantasy points through passing, they go down as QB2. QB3 is just generally going to be almost everyone else who's just a passing QB, maybe with a bit of running. And then my final QB4 is actually for rushing QBs, which is almost completely backups. Generally, actually, people who I'd take as a QB2 for later in the season. So, right, I've got that out of the way later than I should have done. Should have done it before I did the first 2. But anyway, so don't have to explain every time. So we now move on to the Ravens. Lamar Jackson, elite. He's top. He's got good rushing ability on a team that's very run orientated and they're very good at running the ball. So obviously, yeah, he's definitely in. For the running backs, Dobbins is out for the season now. So Gus Edwards is the lead back for the team. I don't think there's anyone else to challenge him at the minute, although I did hear recently they were trying to pick up another running back, so he might have some competition. But as far as I know, he's going to be the number 1 back. He should be there every down. Wide receivers, I've chosen to go with Sammy Watkins as my top wide receiver on the team. I think he'll be their number 1 wide receiver. He's coming in from the Chiefs. There's less talent here, so on the Chiefs you might not have noticed as much of his talent because of what he's surrounded by. Here he'll probably start to shine a bit more. If they get passing going, I think he'll be heavily targeted. I think he could be like the number 1 wide receiver on the team. And then Brown, obviously, would be normally the number 1. I'm predicting him to be the number 2 because I think Watkins will be better. He was good last season anyway, but the Ravens, unless they have talked about upping their game, but they don't throw the ball enough to have a lot of fantasy relevant people. So I'm just sticking with those 2 for now. Mark Andrews is there. He's another one as I've listed as a main pass catching tight end. This year he might not get as many targets. Obviously, the Ravens have also got Rashad Bateman, who everyone's happy about. He's going to miss a couple of games. I'm sure he's off for injury. Or as I said, they have a big passing game, which is why he's not on the list. But either way, they've got a couple of good wideouts, so Mark Andrews might get less targets. He's still listed as a pass catching tight end. And he's a good player, he's highly thought of, but I just don't think he'll do as good as he has done in previous seasons. Justin Tucker, I'll put him in. I remember him from last year. He was top 4 several times through the season, so he can come along. And the Ravens, they're just a good D, so I would pick them. Simple as that. On to the Bills. So Josh Allen, he goes in the elite. I don't think Josh Allen rushes much, so I put him in just the elite passing category. He had massive numbers last year. Half the time he was just sat around on someone's bench actually for the first couple of games of the season. I don't expect him to be that this year, but I expect him to put up the same sort of scores, and he should be flying off the boards quite early on, to be honest. Here we have our first of our running back committees, Zach Moss and Devon Singletary. I don't know who's going to be the top dog. I don't know if one's better than the other. I'm sure they're still running a committee this year. I'd rather just put them both in the committee column, and then when it comes up to the draft and evaluating the running backs, then I'll decide who I like more out of the two, who I'd rather pick. If there's anyone else, I'd pick him instead of them. But for now, they'll just go there because unless there's any more news about it or someone gets injured as a clear-cut starter, I just think they'll keep rotating like they did last season. Wide receivers managed to fit in 3 from the team. Obviously, with the amount they pass the ball, there's no reason we shouldn't. And undoubtedly, Stephon Diggs is there. I put him down as elite. He just constantly scores. If you can get him and Allen on your team together and they keep hooking up, that's a clear-cut way to sneak up to your fantasy championship, definitely. Second in the team, I've gone for Emmanuel Sanders, mainly because he's come from the Saints. He's a good player, maybe been overshadowed at the Saints. He'll probably still be overshadowed here, but I still think he's got that experience and talent to come in as the number 2. Cole Beasley, I've put down as the number 3 on the team. Mainly because I think Sanders might be slightly better, but also I think Beasley could miss a bit of time. There's been it's still the same. He doesn't want to get vaccinated. And as we've seen with players like Cam Newton, if you're not vaccinated, you can miss a lot of training time. You can miss game time. Obviously, Cam's no longer at the Patriots now. Cole Beasley's still here. He made it through the round of cuts. But he can still miss a couple of games in the season. I'd rather not draft him highly if I can pick him up. If I can pick up a lower round as like a later, as an WR4 doesn't even matter. It'll, like when I sort them out, but he'll probably be in a later round. If I get him there, I'm happy. If he's gone by then, that's fine. I've picked equal or better players at earlier draft picks who I don't have to worry about missing game time. Hopefully, he's the only one I know who's well outspoken about it. So's Allen actually. Now I come to think about it, but I don't know if their stance has changed or what. And then, no interested. They got Knox. I only know they have a guy called Knox because there was a pick your players from the 4 teams in the playoffs last year. And I was like, oh, that's their tight end. It's Knox. And I know who he is. I still have no idea who he is. I'm not picking him. Tyler Bass, kicker. He's on the list as the Bills should just put up a lot of points. He's not high up on the list, but he's not bad. But I'll pick him. I'll put him somewhere. I'll pick him. I don't know much about the Bills' defense, though, to be honest. I should have enough defenses anyway that I can just pick someone else, but they're not one of the epically good ones as far as I can tell. Now we go to Panthers. Less to talk about here. Sam Darnold, I put him down as a passing QB. He's the clear number 1 on the team. He might be better now he's out of the Jets. I'm not sure. I haven't really seen him in action much. I won't tend to look for him in the draft, but if it falls down and he's like the top guy left for quarterback, I'll take him. I'd rather have him as a QB backup than my own QB though. Running backs, like what's Christian McCaffrey, like do I need to say any more? Basically, he's going to be the number 1 pick this year as well, guarantee it, unless something goes wrong. But basically, yeah. Last season, he obviously had the injury for ages. Even before he went down, he was still putting up massive points. And I just expect him to do the same this year. Wide receivers, I'm going with the same as last year. So Moore's going to be the top receiver, as he was. And then Robbie Anderson's going to be the second receiver. Robbie Anderson, I wouldn't have kept if we'd still had Bridgewater. As we've gone to Darnold, though, I think he's likely to give a few more targets out there, be a bit more accurate, if he lives up to the expectations on him when he went to the Jets. Wait and see. Tight ends, I don't know who the tight ends are, but I feel like Darnold would rather throw to the running back anyway because it's Christian McCaffrey. Kicker and defense, I don't know. That's it for Panthers. On to the Bears. So there's our first QB4. Justin Fields, he's a rushing QB. He's a backup though. Dalton's guaranteed to get the week 1 start. How long he'll start, we don't know. Eventually, Justin Fields should see the field. I'd pick him, but I'd want him as my bench QB, so that when he comes on, I can then switch him in if I need to. I can't pick him as a starter because he's definitely not starting week 1, and I can't risk having him there missing all the games. Running backs, David Montgomery. Last year he was good, even with how poor the Bears O-line was. He was still making all these plays, getting all these yards. Obviously, they picked up, was it Tevin Jenkins in the draft? I think he's still out injured. But if they've improved their line, it should be a better position for Montgomery anyway. Especially depending on who the quarterback is, because it could open up the running game a bit more. Then we've got Williams. He's the backup. He's likely to get on the field, though, for some third downs, like passing plays and stuff. So I'd draft him a bit later on. But he's there enough I've considered to put him on the list to draft. And he's one of these injuries, missed games, whatever, he's available and should get a majority of the work. It shouldn't be a committee if he has to step up. I'll take Allen Robinson as the wide receiver. He's the team's top wide out. I don't need to say much else. Mooney's up there. He interests me as a wide receiver too, but I'm not looking to pick him up in the draft. I might pick him up later in the season. I think I'd want to pick up Mooney after Fields starts getting the starts. Before that, I'm not sure. I don't have much faith in Dalton after watching him last season, to be perfectly honest. Tight ends, I got Cole Kmet. I'd quite like him, but Jimmy Graham's always in the background. Obviously, the last thing he did was that walk-off touchdown in the final game of the season. That didn't really matter anyway, because they lost. But if it's like last season, Cole Kmet could get on. He could get a lot of snaps, a lot of yards. If they get to the red zone, they'll just put Jimmy Graham on. They'll just go get a TD. I think I had Graham to start last year, and I think the first couple of games, all I got was 7 points. So while Graham's on the team and he's still a good player and a nice target, I don't think I can bear to pick Kmet. Unless he really comes leaps and bounds, but then maybe I'll go look at him on the waiver wire in a season if he's still available. Kicker, I didn't put down a kicker. Don't know who the kicker is. Defense, Bears have usually got a good D as well. So I'd probably draft them. I'd be happy to draft them, to be fair. With a decent edge rush, as far as I remember. Right, on to Cincinnati Bengals. So Joe Burrow. Last year I would have put him down as maybe a rushing QB. I don't remember him rushing much, but also after his injury, I don't think he'll be rushing as much. So he's just going to a big passing QB. Obviously, last year, the Bengals were always coming from behind. They were passing a lot. He was throwing the most passes out of anyone until he went down with injury. I think 60 passes a game or something ridiculous like that. But if they haven't improved much, he's still got to pass a lot. He's now got his favourite target back from college as well, so that could also help with his passing. As long as he's recovered from his injury, this could be quite decent. And he did pick up a lineman. They didn't get Penicial, but they did get a lineman, at least one. So I'll wait and see. But yeah, I'd pick Burrow. I wouldn't mind. He should do all right. Running backs is Mixon. Last year, everyone was touting him to have a really good season. He was going in the first round in a lot of places. He didn't have the season people wanted. It was a good season, but it wasn't what they wanted. This year, I'd pick him though. Probably not first round, but second round, probably high up. He's still going to be a lead back, but he also now no longer has Giovanni Bernard, which means he's highly likely to stay on for third downs. Which could give him a lot more targets, PPR points, maybe a couple extra touchdowns. As long as he can stay healthy, because he did miss quite a few games last year, actually, now I think about him. Right, wide receivers. And this is like a bold statement, but I'm going to say Jamar Chase is going to be their wide receiver 1. Just because I know he's a year removed from football. He might take a game or two to catch up. He did have a couple of drops in the preseason. But him and Burrow had the partnership back at LSU. They were winning everything together. I just think now he's back with Burrow, the chemistry will come back, and Burrow's just going to look for him. They know how each other plays. So that's why I think he's going to be the top target. He'll be the highest, the wide receiver 1 on the team anyway. Next we'll go T. Higgins. Yeah, he started having a breakout last season, gaining momentum. Hopefully he can keep improving. I would have said he would have been a top if it hadn't been for Chase arriving. Obviously, AJ Green left, which did vacate targets, but it just gets... There's still 3 wide receivers. They've still got to share the targets anyway. But I'm putting Higgins at number 2 just because of how good he was getting in the last season anyway. Tyler Boyd I put on there. If the Bengals are going to throw that much, they should have enough targets to have 3 wide receivers to feed them, to give them fantasy value every week. So we have got Boyd. He is a decent player. How much value he actually gives remains to be seen. The kicker last year was pretty good. I can't quite remember who it was, but he moved to another team this year. But I haven't picked him. I don't know who the kicker is now. I don't want the kicker. I'm not picking a defense. On to the Browns now. First got Mayfield. I put him down as a passing QB. He did start to improve last season. Started throwing a lot more passes. Started throwing quite a few touchdowns. I drafted him, but reluctantly, as I know they are quite a run-heavy team. But he could improve. He could have a couple of surprise games. He might be an interesting streamer during the season, to be fair. Running back wise, obviously I'm going to have 2 running backs on there because they are a run-heavy team. Because of how much they run, Chubb's down as an elite running back. He is very good and he will get the running volume. And also may get a couple of passes thrown in as well. I think he did last year. And we'll have Hunt on there. Hunt goes down as the RB2 on the team. Strictly speaking, he's RB2, but some games he can get the same amount of points or maybe more than Chubb if he just gets a couple of targets or if Chubb's having a bad game. Chubb doesn't have many bad games though. He's a demon. But if Chubb goes injured, then Kareem Hunt's in line for more targets and more work as well. I've got Jarvis Landry down on the wide receivers. Mainly he's a good wide receiver, but also he's one of the few wide receivers that can also go get passing yards and a passing touchdown. Other wide receivers, Odell Beckham, he's very good. I just don't fancy picking him. Rashard Higgins didn't live up to expectations last year. Donovan People-Jones didn't live up to expectations really. Just fantasy-wise, they just wouldn't give me the points I need, to be honest. Tight ends, I don't know. Who are they? They've released a lot of tight ends. I ain't got a clue. Sorry. Kicker I don't want, but a defense I do. They had a pretty good D last year as well. They picked up Clowney in the off-season. If he can live up to the form and the hype he had coming into the league, they're going to have like a monster pass rush going on. The first game is against the Chiefs, so if I pick them up, I would definitely also pick up a second defense for streaming. If I picked a second D, who I didn't fancy too much, I might play that week 1 and then pick them up on the waiver wire. But apart from the Chiefs game, I definitely would like to use. Onto the Cowboys. So, easy enough. Start with Dak Prescott. I put him down as elite. I haven't put him down to rushing. I don't think he rushes much. He passes a lot. He was the top QB in like 5 games before he got injured last season. But with the amount of like skill and talent he got in offense, he can clearly get the numbers up. He should be able to challenge for QB1, to be honest, especially as he is the highest paid quarterback at the minute, I believe, unless someone else is signing a new contract. Running back would go Zeke. I've put him down as elite. I wasn't going to. I took him out. I put him back in. With Prescott there, yes, he can be. Without Prescott, he's not. I've left him there for now, but in the future, I might decide to move him back. Possibly. Right, wide receivers anyway. I really like CD Lamb, but I still have to go with Amari Cooper as the number 1 on the team. He was the top Cowboy receiver last year, and he's just a great choice with Dak back now. CD Lamb did pick up in his rookie year until Dak went. Even after Dak went, he was still probably put up the best numbers of the 3 without Dak, but they weren't good numbers. I think he'll overtake Cooper this year to become wide receiver 1 on the team. But that's a mid-season we'll have to look at. Michael Gallup, I kept him on there because he did used to get a lot of targets. He used to be a good player before Lamb turned up. He must have been wide receiver 2. But last season I drafted him. He just did nothing for me. I traded him away. He did nothing. Obviously, Dak went down. I don't know if it would have been different with Dak there. I'll put him on, but he's not someone I look forward to drafting. But I could be pleasantly surprised, you know. For tight end wise, they got Schultz. I picked him up. He had a good game last year. Picked him up. He had a crap game. Dropped him. That's what I remember. They got another tight end who was out. I can't remember what his name was. Beginning of a J. Blake Jarwin. Like I don't know much about him. He missed a lot of time with injury. I don't know if he's any good. He's not on my list. And then we've got Mr. Greg. I drafted him last year. He did me alright for the first half of the season. Dropped him at the bye, and then I picked up Sanders instead, I think. But obviously, Dak went down. Cowboys started not scoring as much, so that's why. I think I picked him because I read a couple of reviews and he said they were one of the top kickers. So I'd happily pick him again. As long as Dak stays healthy. If Dak goes down, then maybe I'd keep him, maybe not. I haven't said. Defense. No. I had something against defense, but I don't remember what it is at all. So, no. Sorry. There's a reason somewhere. Onto the Broncos, and this one looks pretty empty, as you can see. Locke wasn't very good last year. I'm not a fan of him. They've got Bridgewater. Bridgewater, I'd say, is a step up. I wouldn't say he's that good, to be honest. I don't think either of them could have it locked in. I'm pretty sure Bridgewater's a starter for week 1. I don't think either could be locked in for all season as a starter. Running backs, you're going to have Melvin Gordon or Williams, the rookie who's just been drafted. I'm going to just start forming a committee. I don't want to pick one and find out the other one becomes the lead back. So I'd rather just avoid it for now. Wide receivers, I'll take Jerry Jeudy just because he's a second year. So he's had last year to adapt to the NFL, to get all his game time in to improve. I think Bridgewater's more likely to throw to him than Drew Lock was. But Bridgewater's still not very good. So he's on there as the number 1 receiver for the team. I'll take him. I might be able to use him as like draft capital or just as a trade for someone else. I wouldn't really want him that much. There was Cortland Sutton. He was out last year. I've not seen him play. I don't know anything about him. People say he's good. I have no idea. I haven't got it on my list because I've got no idea. Lack of faith in the quarterback, so I'm not going to pick a kicker. Apparently the defense used to be quite good, and last year was an off year, probably because of people opting out and stuff, and injuries. I don't know enough, so I just don't need them. But looking at the Lions, so they got Jared Goff, who was the worst QB out of the two involved in that trade at the start of the season. I've heard he prefers shorter throws, which might not benefit the wide receivers, but probably running backs and tight ends. So, as you can actually tell from how I've laid out who I want. Running back wise, I put another committee. DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams. Swift, if it had just been him, he would have been a clear-cut number 1. I had him a couple of games last season. He was putting up points. He was good, even no matter how bad the offense is. Now Williams has come in. Problem is, Williams is also a decent back. He was challenging Aaron Jones for like first and second down duties at Green Bay. He'll challenge Swift for those duties. Swift dropped that pass in the first game of the season. I vividly remember that. I don't remember how much other passing he caught or didn't catch. Jamal Williams, though, at Green Bay was always a good pass catcher. So I feel like it'll be a committee. And at some point, one of them might win, one might not. Or it might be like last year when they rotated through with Peterson and with Carrion Johnson. So I don't trust him enough to pick either the top back, but I would pick them as a committee back, as like an RB3 on my team. Wide receiver wise, Amon-Ra St. Brown. There's no other receivers of note. The only receivers I knew they traded out. He's the top guy receiver wise, but I don't expect him to be the top guy on the team. But there's a lot of hype about him, so I'd pick him as that and see how he goes. Obviously, Hockenson, I'm expecting to be the top in targets, especially if Jared Goff likes to throw it short. It'll be quite good. Hockenson could possibly have a tight end 1 finish if he lives up to all the expectations. But he's got an easy path to tight end 5. Let's put it that way anyway. Top 5. Kickers, Matt Prater's gone. I talked about him earlier. They've had like 4 different kickers on their team in the space of the week. They just keep dropping to waivers and hiring and cutting. And I've no idea, so I've just left it. I'm not doing that. I won't pick the Lions D because I had a look at a list of opponents and they play the Packers twice. I want the Packers to smash them. So, no, I'm not picking their D. Oh boy, here we go. So, Rodgers, I put him down as elite. He was elite. This will be his last season. It could be his last season. I know he wants to trade. The ideal way to get a good trade is to absolutely ball out and MVP again. And then Green Bay should get the picks they want because if you've got a 2-time in a row MVP, people will drop those first round picks like nothing. Or, perhaps they could trade him to the Texans for Watson, maybe. But yeah, he's still got all the key pieces on offense. He's got Cobb come back to make him happy. Most it's the same. Obviously, David Bakhtiari is out on the pup list, so like 6 weeks. They lost Corey Linsley, but they did pick up Myers off the draft, who apparently is quite good. So expecting him to still have all the passing freedom he had before. Someone said the schedule is harder this year. I haven't really compared them, but I still think Rodgers will put up points. And we don't have to play Tampa Bay in the regular season, which is one we struggled in, so that's good. Running backs, Aaron Jones, he's down as elite. He's just got the ability to put up points and to score. If the Packers are passing loads, obviously they pass to the backs as well. That can get them quite a few red zone touchdowns. But once they're up a few scores as well, they bring out the backs. And sometimes you make stuff out of nothing. There was one play last season, I remember, where he just ripped off an 80-yard touchdown run just in like garbage time almost. AJ Dillon is going to go in there. Now Jamal Williams is gone. He is the number 2 back. If he shares as much time with Jones as Jones did with Williams, then he's going to get quite a bit of game time. He's also the bigger back, so red zone he could turn up and be a threat. And if Jones goes down injured again, he'll be the number 1 back for the team. So I'd pick him up if I can get Jones. I'd pick him up as a handcuff on the bench, or I might just pick him up anyway if I really struggle to get any decent running backs. Wide receivers, so Devontae Adams. Last season, he was the top scorer, the top individual scorer 3 of the top 10 times. I picked him first round. He's my first round target again. Like 40 plus points 3 times. He clearly won me a couple of games. That and his partner with Rodgers helped as well. And he's definitely the number 1 receiver in the team. There's no doubt about it. Randall Cobb's come back. We specifically traded for him to keep Rodgers. It's a basic fact, isn't it? Rodgers loves him, so he's going to be the number 2 receiver. He's not going to displace Adams, but he is going to walk in. Him and Rodgers will have that connection, that rapport from before. So he will look for him. So he will finish as the wide receiver 2 on the team, definitely. I haven't picked a third wide receiver. You've got Lazard, you've got MVS, you've got Amari Rodgers. It's just they'll all share targets. None of them will be like a standout wide receiver 3 that I want in my team, unless it was like a desperation play or something like that. Tight end wise, Robert Tonyan, obviously he had a proper breakout season last year. Top 5 tight end, I'm pretty sure. Highest amount of touchdowns for a tight end, possibly. He was definitely the only top tight end. He wasn't the top 2 in targets on this team as well. Competition wise, obviously we've got Mercedes Lewis. He's not a pass catcher. He's mostly a blocker. Sternberger starts the season on a 2-game suspension. When he comes back, it's a good chance he'll probably be cut because we've got enough tight ends at the minute. So Tonyan could have more game time this year. And it could be Tonyan, Adams, Cobb, the only 3 to care about, and all the rest can just jog on. But we'll wait and see for a couple of games. Kicker-wise, Crosby, he made a lot of points last year. Packers are going to keep scoring, so he'll have plenty of chance to keep kicking it, and he's not that bad. He missed a couple maybe, but generally is quite good. A defense, slight inconsistencies at time, but generally quite good. A couple of games where they just lost it, but a lot of games they put up some points. They're very good at streaming if you can get them in the right weeks, and they could be one to hold on to all season if you're just struggling to pick a defense now and then as well. Right, we've just gone from one end of the spectrum to the other. Welcome to the Texans. Watson won't play all season. All the drama that's going on, they're just going to... I've heard even if they didn't cut him, but they'll just keep him as ineligible to play. Just, I think, so they can keep him to trade him for draft picks next year, as long as the court case doesn't go south, if it gets to court. So they got Tyrod Taylor, and I have no faith in him, really, to be honest. But Brandon Cooks is the only player I consider drafting, and I'm not drafting him because I don't have any faith. The Texans have just lost players through injuries. They've just traded out a load of players. They've just cut a load of players. Like, obviously they had to cut, but they cut a load of players that are a bit surprising. They're just looking to get as many draft picks as they can for a complete rebuild. And I'm just going to avoid them. I think they'll be the worst team this year. I don't want to pick a single one. Desperation, I might pick Cooks in the last round if he's still there. But that's about it. Right, on to the Colts. Obviously, the Colts got Wentz. Wentz went and had surgery, wasn't it? He's been out for quite a while, so he's missed a lot of physical practice time. I also don't know how good he actually is, but I'm not planning on drafting him, really. I don't think he'll be, compared to some of the other quarterbacks I've got the ability and range to get, I don't think I need Wentz. Running back wise, Jonathan Taylor. I would have put him as an elite running back, but the whole Wentz being here, I'm not sure how it's going to play out. And also, the Colts just keep getting injuries to their O-line, and they're suffering. And obviously, the O-line could cause Taylor to suffer as well. So, I'm not listing him as elite, I'm listing him as running back 1. It doesn't make much difference, really. He'll still be the top running back on the team. Hines is still there. I don't trust him. Obviously, the massive first game last season, people were dropping over 20% of their fab on him. And then he just that was it. So I might do a waiver wire pickup if he has a massive game, but I'm not putting 20. I'll put like 2. And then if he has more massive games, a bargain. If he doesn't, I haven't lost out. If he does and I don't get him, I've still got my fab to go for other people, and hopefully I've got a good enough team. It doesn't matter. Wide receiver wise, Hilton's out for the first 3 weeks. So even though I've got Michael Pittman, I think he's the second wide receiver in the team. He's the only wide receiver I'm listing at the minute. He could overtake T.Y. Hilton as the wide receiver 1, in which case T.Y. Hilton's worth a wide receiver 2. I won't draft Hilton just because I'm drafting a player who I can't get for 3 weeks. Maybe if we put an injury reserve slot in halfway through the season last year, I think we're starting with one again. So maybe after the draft, I might drop whoever I fancy the least, pick up Hilton, stash him on injury reserve, and then either pick that player back up or just go for someone different. Yeah. Tight end wise, I didn't see a dominant tight end on the list. Kicker wise, Blankenship is a name I remember from the last season. I know this season he actually was in a contest for kicking duties. He has one out, so it's not a competition. So I know he will be kicking. As long as he doesn't screw up, it'll be fine. If he does start to drop him, and I have him, might have to drop him from another kicker because he'll probably get cut all of a sudden or replaced. Defensive wise, definitely I'll have the Colts defense. A game or two last year when they must have put up around 20 points and they're always going in the top of the list. And I don't remember hearing any major changes for their defense in the offseason. So yes, top 5 defense for me, I think. Top 5. On to the Jags, and there's more players I would have picked last season, that's for sure. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence, number 1 pick in the draft. If he's got a season like Joe Burrow had last year, and the defense just keeps letting him score, and he's just got to pass a lot, he's got roots for a massive load of fantasy points, especially if the new coaching staff gives him a good offense, if he can really work it, if he's as good as everyone talks about him being. Generational talent, I believe, is the word. But that's what it is about Kyle Pitts. I'm pretty sure it is about Lawrence as well. Running back wise, James Robinson. When Etienne got drafted, everyone was a bit hesitant about it. I was a little bit like, they have drafted another running back. But I also, at training camp, they were putting Etienne out of receiver. And I thought they just picked him up as a good receiver and then have him like Robertson in the backfield, Etting as receiver, and then have like a load of trick players where he can motion to the backfield and all this sort of stuff. But obviously, it doesn't matter. Etting's out for the season. Robertson's still the number one back. I don't expect, unless they pick up someone before the start of the season, I don't expect anyone to challenge him for that. And, as an undrafted free agent, he did really good last year. I expect him to do pretty good this year, especially with Lawrence. If he's able to open up the passing game, that should open up the running game for him as well. Now, for wide receivers, I'm going to say Marvin Jones is going to be the wide receiver one for the team. Obviously, he's come in with the experience from all his time in the Lions. So he's a bit of a veteran. So I imagine he's just gone out there and performed straight away. If him and Lawrence can get a connection, that's going to be good. Chenault will be the wide receiver 2. It was between him and Chark, but Chenault's got more. Chark's been around a bit longer. Chenault's got more chance of breaking out. Like last season could have been him getting used to the league. And I feel with Lawrence, he could have that breakout as well. And I did watch a bit of a preseason game where he caught the ball and then just ran another 10 yards of people hanging off him. So I quite like him, actually. So yeah, I'd happily draft him. I'm not putting Chark down. I could do, but I'm not picking 3 receivers from the Jags. I don't think they've improved that much to support 3 receivers. Tight ends, I'm quite disappointed. There's nothing better than I love picking up like a multitasking player. Like Tonyan, I loved it when he was wide receiver and tight end last season. When Taysom Hill stood in, I picked him up the minute Breeze went down. As a nice little tight end sort of thing. I tried to pick up Hinton for the Broncos. I did pick up Hinton. I started him that week. Did not end well. But, live and learn, I guess. But, yeah, I was definitely planning on taking Tebow. Plan was, even though this is a tight end, they'd definitely, if he'd stayed on the team, thrown in some, like, Taysom Hill style stuff for him. But they cut him, so no, I don't want any tight ends. I don't want any kickers. Jags kickers just cursed bad luck. Lambo's just had a terrible time. And Rosas was there. They traded him away. All I remember seeing both of them missing kicks in their preseason game. So, yeah. And they cycled about 6 kickers last season, and all of them just had mediocre stuff. So any kicker from the Jags, no, just passing on it. And the Jags D, it's quite young. I still don't think they're good enough to be a fantasy relevance. They just won't serve the purpose. Right. On to the Chiefs then. So first up behind, excuse me. Quite clearly, he is the number 1 QB in fantasy anyway. So he goes down to my elite list. He's just fantastic what he does. There's no doubt about it. He's got all the weapons around him. Chiefs are a top team. He will put up a lot of points. In pretty much most mock drafts I do, he gets picked in like the 3rd round, even though a 1 QB league. And the difference between him and the next man up, that could be worth a 3rd round pick. I don't know. I have to work out my strategy a bit more for quarterbacks. Then we've got CEH. He's the every down back for the Chiefs. Their passing is really good, so the running game doesn't get off as much. They don't need to pass to the running back. If they were not as good a team, he'd actually probably get a lot more work and a lot more points. And people have disappointed taking him last year. I've seen him go high up in the 2nd and the 1st round. Any other team, he would be so much better. It's just he's overshadowed by what they can do. And even when they're up, they'll still just be able to pass the ball because they've just got all these weapons. But he's still the RB1 for the team. He'd go in that category. I'd still like to pick him. I'd still happily have him on the team. He's a solid pick. Wide receiver wise, obviously Tyreek Hill. The number 1, number 2 receiver, depending on opinion. But just look at his speed. He had 1 target in the last preseason game. Just sped straight past the defender, caught a 35-yard touchdown. Last season, he had that massive game where he got 50 points in 1 game, which I think was the individual highest score for a player last season. So, he's going to go in the 1st. It'll be him or Adams as the 1st receiver gone. If Adams is gone, I might pick Hill, but otherwise I'll pick him Adams. But I picked 10th and 15th. I don't think he'll be there when it comes around to me the second time. The other receivers in the team, none of them really interest me because I've got Kelsey who takes the targets, and because none of them are a massive week-to-week guaranteed fantasy points. But yeah, Kelsey also number 1 tight end in fantasy. He's predicted to go off the board in the first round. In a lot of leagues, he probably will. If it's not the first, early second. I mean, if they get to me at 15, I'm taking him as well. I'm taking Hill and Kelsey at 15. I don't expect to get either. If I get one, I'd be happy. Noah Gray. I've heard a lot of good reports about him from the training camp as well. Obviously, he was a rookie picked up from Duke. Chiefs can run a lot of 2 tight end sets, which could give him a lot of chance to get fantasy relevant, get some points. And Kelsey's getting a bit older now. He's probably more prone to having to rest a bit or sit out or injuries or whatever, which would give Gray a chance to step up and take over Kelsey's role if he's good enough. I'd put him in the tight end 2 section of the team. I wouldn't mind picking him up just to see how he progresses through the season. Sit him on the bench. If he's not getting any chances, drop him, but you never know. It's one of those ones I'm excited to see how he does. Then we've got Butker. Chiefs going to go score points. Someone needs to kick him. It's that simple. And we've got the defense. It's not amazing fantasy-wise, but it is good. It's good enough I can name a few players off there like Chris Jones and Kenny Clark and so on. No, not Kenny Clark. Chris Jones I can name anyway. They're one I probably pick for like 75% of the season, maybe stream a couple of other games. But one I would consider picking in the draft anyway. Especially because first game's against the Browns. So I probably wouldn't actually want to play them either. Be interesting. On to the Chargers then. So Justin Herbert. I think he has some rushing upside, but not as much rushing upside as main rushing QBs. But when he came out last season, he just started getting all the passing going. He was just on fire. If he can improve this season, he can reach the elite level of QB scoring, definitely. We've got Austin Eckler as the running back. He's the running back 1. All I remember is third game of the season, I was playing the league leader who had him. He put over 30 points on me. Obviously, he went out for injury afterwards. When he came back, he put a couple of 20-point games. I want to put him at elite level. I don't know if he is elite, but that 30-point game sticks out in my head. I'll put him at RB1, but I'll probably pick him high, probably higher than his actual position is worth. But I don't mind unless he lets me down badly, then I'll be a bit upset. But it's a gamble I'm willing to take, definitely. For the wide receivers, Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. Obviously, Keenan Allen was the top wide receiver at the Chargers. We go straight into wide receiver 1. And as far as I know, Mike Williams was the second most targeted. So I'm going to leave him at wide receiver 2. That seems to make sense. Jared Cook at tight end. He came over from the Saints. He was a good pass catching option at the Saints. I think he'll be a good pass catching option here as well. So I've listed him as a pass catching tight end. If Justin Herbert likes to target him, he could have top 10 tight end potential. I don't know how much Herbert likes to throw to tight ends. I don't know how good Jared Cook is. I'd pick him up in the draft anyway. I'm happy to do that. That's it for the team. Then we go to the Rams. So now they've got Stafford. I don't know how much Stafford's going to change the team. Everyone says the offense is expected to be better this year with Stafford, so I'd expect everyone to score the same as last season, if not higher. Henderson at running back. Akers is out for the year, so now Henderson is definitely the running back 1. He should be the every down back. Should have been the every down back, actually. Although I did recently get Sony Michel from the Patriots. I don't think Michel would take over starting back duties, but I think he could eat into his snaps a little bit. But he's a good backup to have. So if Henderson went down, I'd pick up Michel. That's good, but he's still in my RB2 category. I'll probably pick him in the middle of that. I did have him last season. He had a good couple of games. He also got a couple of injuries, so hit and miss perhaps. Right. Wide receiver, we've got Ronald Cupp and Cooper Woods. Uh, Everything I know, everyone just places these guys next to each other. They can't separate them. And they are, like, fantasy-wise, they are almost identical. Like last season, Woods scored 40 more points, but he played one more game than Cup, which is the only reason I've listed him slightly higher. He played all games and he scored slightly more points. But everyone literally lists them one spot after the other in mock drafts, or whatever. I'll probably end up with them quite close because I can't tell the difference. And Robert Woods has to go as the number one receiver because he went at number 2 in our league last year. And so that clearly means something. He must be very good. So he can stay there. Tight ends, they got Tyler Higbee. He had started a lot of promise last year and then just sort of dropped and just kept... When he was on the bench, he was scoring like 2-3 touchdown games or whatever. Then when he started playing, he was just scoring nothing. So that's not the sort of inconsistencies I want on my team. I just want the inconsistencies of Packers being crap. And letting me down. Anyway. No interested in the kicker, but the Rams defense, definitely. Harold Donald up front, and they've got a couple of good cornerbacks. Like, what's not to love about them? They're definitely going in top 5 easily. We move on to the Raiders. They got Derek Carr. He's okay, but he's not someone I plan on picking up in a draft, to be honest. Josh Jacobs at running back. He was good last year. He was very good. He was backed up by Booker, who was a clear backup. But now they picked up Drake from the Cardinals. I see it as more of a committee than a running back 1 and a running back 2. So that drops the value of Jacobs for me a bit. Drake never had much value anyway, but still, they share value. So I'm putting them in their running back committee slot for now, so I can decide what's going on. Wide receiver, they've got Henry Ruggs. Aguilar's gone, or I would have had him on the list. No one else there I can think of by name. So Aguilar will be the wide receiver. Ruggs will be the wide receiver 1 for the team. Although he won't be the top target. That's going to be Waller, tight end elite. If he continues his upward trend, he's easily going to push Kelsey for the number 1 tight end spot. He'll go in the 2nd or 3rd round, I think. I don't think I'll get a chance to get a hand on him, to be honest. If I do, I'd take him around 2 tight end sets, though. He's just that good. Kicker and defense, not for me. No, these guys from the Raiders, that's it, pretty much. Dolphins. Quite a lot of players from Dolphins, actually. Like, I'm not biased or anything. But, no. I do like the setup. I like the coaching. I like the way that last year they were challenging from the playoffs. And probably could have got a wild card if it had gone slightly differently. So, Tua, I'll pick Tua. Mainly passing. I'm not convinced he'll be amazing, but I am generally think he can do better than he did last season. So they put all these weapons around him, but if he crashes and burns, all of these guys are going down, and that could suck quite a bit. But I'm confident he'll do at least better. I don't think he'll do much rushing, but I think he might have got used to the NFL, got used to the style of play, the way the defenses are, and I think he can make a lot more. He can give a lot more value to the players around him. They brought in Waddle in the offseason as well. Obviously, they had all that stuff at Bama together, so if they can start hooking up, that can start marching the team down the field. Getting some more touchdowns, getting a lot of yards in the PPR league as well. PPR doesn't matter for the quarterback, actually. So, yeah, ignore that. Roundabout wise, they sound like they're going to have a committee. They've been told they're going to have specific backs for specific situations. So Gaskin was like kind of a lead back last year. It was quite good, but because of the way they've said that, I'm going to have to put him down as a committee back. He might still get put high on my list to draft, but for now I'm listening there. I like Ahmed as well. He's quite fast. He can line up at receiver as well and do a couple of designed plays. I might look to get him off the waivers if Gaskin has time off injured again. I can't remember who the other running back was. There was a third back who was situational. Might be. I think it's Brown, but I just don't have interest in him at the minute. Wide receiver wise, obviously Devontae Parker, top receiver, expected to be top receiver again. I'll pick him as a top receiver. Jalen Waddle is coming as a rookie, but obviously, as I said, him and Tua both went to Alabama. They've just got a connection. They know how each other works. As I said with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, I do expect Waddle to finish second in targets this year. Will Fuller obviously misses the first game of the season, so might not even get picked up in the draft because he's suspended. Comes back after that. But I got him in a trade last year. It was a bit pants before that. After in the trade, he just sort of went off, just having massive games. I'd like to think he could do it again this year, so I pick him up. But I put him in like as the third wide receiver on the team. I feel like he might be hit and miss. It all depends on Tua, so it's just something we'll have to wait and see how it happens. Mike Gesicki, tight end. Last season, I would have put him down as a main pass catching tight end, but picking up Fuller, drafting Waddle, I've now just put him down as a tight end. He'll get passes, but I don't think he'll get loads of passes. I don't think he's worth being called a pass catching tight end. But I just pick him up as a tight end 1. Jason Sanders, yep, picked him up last year. Got him in a trade. He was good. He was always on top. Like the amount of 50+ field goals he was kicking. Like he was getting me a decent amount of points. It's just 40-yard field goals, just field goals everywhere. If Tua still struggles, he could also still have a good season just kicking field goals. So I think he's probably my top choice. No, he's my second choice for kicker, definitely. And the Dolphins D, they just unexpectedly good last year. They had a couple of games where they just knocked it out of the park and you weren't expecting it. I would pick him up. I'd play him all season long, I think. Xavier Howard wanted to leave in the off-season. They've kept him on. So as far as I know, they've still got all of their defensive players. I'm pretty sure they picked up a nice defensive player in the draft as well. And I know a couple of the Dolphins games, you got the Jets, the Giants, the Jags, and you got the Texans. And I know, I'm predicting them to be some of the worst offenses, really. So yeah, I'd be happy to do them all year long. All right, Minnesota. Cousins is good, but I'm unsure if I feel happy picking him for all season long, especially how good Dalvin Cook is and how much the team like to run. Because they can just go for their run game so much. So he's not a target in the draft to me. Dalvin Cook is, though. He's elite. He's the top. I think he's listed as going at number 2 ADP overall. Yeah, I will pick him if I get the chance. I'll give a shout out to Alexander Mattison. He went to draft last year as Dalvin Cook's handcuff. If Cook misses time, he could get some value. But while Cook is healthy, I don't think he'd get on the field enough to be worth anything. So I'm not looking for him in the draft anyway. For the wide receivers, Jefferson and Thielen. I'm saying it now that Jefferson's going to be the wide receiver 1 on this team this year, and Thielen will be the wide receiver 2 on the team. Just Jefferson started having his breakout. He was probably the best breakout receiver. Probably could have got rookie for the year if it hadn't been for Justin Herbert. But yeah, Thielen's getting on a bit. Jefferson's young and new. I still won't discount Thielen. He had practically the most amount of targets in the red zone last year. He's just constantly getting red zone targets and red zone touchdowns. If they start giving us to Jefferson, Jefferson's value will explode and Thielen will just drop out. But I don't expect it. I think that would be next year that might happen. But this year, I expect him to still get wide receiver 2. Especially because Irv Smith's gone. Irv Smith here, I would have drafted as a passing tight end. He's gone. They're talking about Conklin or someone. I don't fancy it. There's no Smith, so I just won't take a tight end off the Vikings. It's just been vacated off the list for me, basically. The kicker isn't memorable. And the defense, I think they're good against the run, not so good against the pass. Considering some of the teams they play, I don't want to risk that. All right, Patriots. This list is going to look completely different to what it looked a week ago. Basically, while Cam Newton was there, I didn't have a single Patriot player almost. He just, after watching last season with him there, Patriots just weren't good. I didn't have any value to any of their players. Hardly any value. I wasn't going to pick anyone. Obviously now, Cam's been cut. Jones been confirmed as starter. All of a sudden, I've now got interest in more Patriots players. So I've quickly added them all to the list. So Mac Jones is there. Like, he's going to go out. He's going to like to throw the ball. He's got the good pedigree because obviously he came in as one of the top. He was the fifth QB, but he could have gone in the top 3. He is good. I can expect him to do well for them. He is kind of like the new Brady with Bill Belichick. Damian Harris at running back. Now Cam's gone, I can trust the running backs to actually get running plays. Birkenhead's gone. Michelle's been traded. That only leaves White in the backfield as someone to challenge him. And White wouldn't take over lead back duties, and I don't think White would take that many third down stuff either. So I think Harris is a good 3-down back option. So with Cam gone, he's definitely gone on my RB as the RB1 on my RB2 list. Receiver wise, now that Mac's here, I'd go with Jacoby Myers. I mean, last season I did pick him up late on a Sunday night, and he did win me a matchup. But other than that, he just wasn't much use to me. But now he's like to get the ball. Yes, I'll have him. And Aguilar's come in too. I like him too, but Myers to me is going to be the top wide receiver in the team. Aguilar's going to be number 2. Tight ends, Patriots have picked up both Hunter Henry and John O. Smith in the off-season. They're both injured at the minute, I'm pretty sure, but they're both experienced, they're similar age, they're similar players. I think they'll be quite similar. It's hard to pick a difference between the two. I'm putting, so I've got tight end 1 and tight end 2, which slots into my 3 and 4. I'm putting Hunter Henry as the top of the 2, just because he's higher on ADP, and probably more experienced player. People know whatever's going on between them. I'm not looking to pick him, but I could pick him because Patriots might start to run a bit more, run a lot of 2 tight end sets, might start to throw a bit to tight ends. They are, as I said, they are both experienced from other teams, so it'd be interesting to see how that goes. Kicker-wise, I was going to pick Nick Folk. He was the kicker last year. Turns out he's been dropped to the practice squad, and they've given the kicking job to someone else. I'm not going to pick up a rookie. I might pick him up to stream, but I'm not going to draft him. And defensive-wise, yep. I always knew the Patriots a good defense for years, even when I wasn't much into football. Last year, a couple players opted out. I know that. So, and a lot of them were on the defensive side. With them back this year, the defense should be able to step up. So I'm expecting better things, so I would pick them in the draft. I think they'll be more competitive and more viable for fantasy. And I went a bit early, I was still talking, but New Orleans. Taysom Hill, Jameis Winston. This is another one where the QB battle would have decided who does what. Winston's getting the start, but it's still a bit of a situation. I still think they love Hill. I still think they're going to throw in Hill occasionally for gadget plays, for power run plays. Throw him in the red zone. Problem is, he's only listed as a quarterback. I'm not going to pick him as a quarterback and risk him not getting any touchdowns or not getting on the field. I'm not going to pick Winston as a quarterback and risk him missing out on throwing touchdowns because they give it to Hill to run it in. So, because of these reasons, I don't want to pick other players. I'll pick Kamara as the only one because he's just good. Latavius Murray, I might have picked last season, but this season apparently he's struggling. He's not doing as well. People thought he was going to get cut. There's a new backup. I can't remember what it's called. Jones or something. But either way, I don't fancy any of that. Wide receivers, Michael Thomas, always injured or just underperformed. His best games were when Taysom Hill was on, to be honest, I think. And now Winston's a starter. I don't know how it's going to go out. I don't know much about the other receivers. I just don't trust them to do well. I think they're going to regress a bit now Breeze is gone. Those opinions apply for tight ends. I'm not even sure they've got a tight ends. Kicker-wise, Will Luz, I would have put in the list. He's out injured. I'm not sure what they're doing about that. I think at the minute they've picked someone up and cut them or dropped them. So they actually have no active kicker at the minute. So they'll definitely sort out before game day. They should do, but I'm not drafting anyone. Lols I might pick up later on in the season. Right. Right. Well, didn't see. My laptop died. Turned it back on, but it had a bit of a pause session. So now that commercial break's over, let's continue with where we were going, and hopefully the camera should kick back in at some point. I've done talk about the Saints, I think. Yeah, Saints are the ones who picked up Rosas from the Jags. No interest in him. About a medium defense as well. So now we've got the Giants. These are the second best in the worst division, so I don't particularly want many players from them. And this offseason, they've been really injury plagued, especially across like just everywhere, every position. So I'll take a few players, but all their injuries, especially probably to O-line as well, I'm pretty sure. I don't fancy taking Jones. They're just not a strong team this year in offense, I don't think. For running backs, I've got Saquon Barkley. I've listed him as an elite. He probably won't be an elite, in fact. In fact, that definitely was an accident, and I want to change him, but it's too late now. I want to list him as an RB1 just because I wouldn't consider taking him in the first. With all the problems that the Giants have had, I'd rather have him in the second, to be perfectly honest, at best. There's no... We'll see how it goes anyway. Wide receivers, I'd pick Kenny Golladay. Was the best receiver at the Lions, now he's coming over here. I think he could be the best receiver here. I don't have any interest in the other receivers. Like, as I said before, just all the injuries, I just don't trust this team to perform. Tight end, they had Evan Engram, but last year he just had one touchdown with like so many passes to him. If a tight end's not scoring touchdowns, that's a lot of points they're missing out on. I think there's other players I'd rather have more than try bothering him, to be perfectly honest. And with all the struggles that I'm projecting from the injuries, I'm not going to take the kickers or the defense. The Jets here then. So they got Zach Wilson, the second pick. He's a locked-in start for the season. There was a good show in the preseason, and there's a new offensive coordinator for the team, I think. I think it's a good later round option. I don't know how much rushing upside he's got, but I feel like the Jets could be a slightly better team in offense this year, even though they're not going to be a better team on defense. And in fact, that's the thing. Their defense is going to be, they're going to have the worst defense by far. They're going to be so behind in games, they're going to have to constantly keep throwing the ball, which gives a lot of room for points to rack up for Wilson and his receivers. I'm quite unsure how I feel about Jets running backs. There's no names that stand out to me. So they'll just slip away. I can pick them up in the season if no one gets them, but there's nothing there draft-wise I feel like I need. So wide receivers, I'm putting Corey Davis as the wide receiver 1 on the team. He's got his experience in the Titans. I imagine he's going to compete with Crowder for the wide receiver 1. But Crowder's got an injury at the minute, I think. I'm sure. And he's got a bit of age behind him. So I'm going to go with Davis as the wide receiver 1. But I'm still going to put Crowder as wide receiver 2. I'm going to put Elijah Moore as wide receiver 2. I think the rookie will step up. Obviously, him and Wilson have both come in as rookies, so they've probably managed to bond over that. Elijah Moore was good at college as well. So I think he'll just beat out Crowder while Crowder's off. And he will overtake him to be the wide receiver 2 following him when he returns. Crowder, I don't really want to be honest. I put him on as a third wide receiver because I think Jets will have to throw a lot, like the Bengals last year where they could sustain 3 wide receivers. But Crowder's not really a guy I want too much. He might have a breakout season. I don't think so. He might have a couple of good games, yeah, but it's not worth drafting him just to get that, to be perfectly honest, in my opinion. Croft, we've got as well. He had a really good last preseason game, 2 touchdowns. He's not a primary pass target, but he's still likely to be out there running routes. And if Zach Wilson decides he likes his tight end, that could be a route to a lot of sneaky points just there. Especially after watching him against the Packers. He did pretty good. But I'm not sold on their kicker. As I said before, their defense is just going to be hopeless this year. I am not picking them. I'm not putting them anywhere near my team. Next, we move on to the Eagles. Jalen Hurts. I've listed him in the running backup QB category. He's not a backup. I'll sort that out when I'm doing it, but he is a running QB. His rushing abilities offering a good way into some high-scoring fantasy games, that's for sure. Recently, they picked up Minshew, but Minshew's definitely a backup quarterback. He's not challenging Hurts for the starting job. Unless Hurts really struggles this year, but judging by the showings in preseason and last season, I don't think he will. Miles Sanders, he's going to be the running back 1 of the team. He had a decent season last year, and it's what I'd expect to repeat this year. I haven't really looked into it enough to see if he's going to throw in lots of passes for the PPR points. I feel like Hurts is more likely to scramble than chuck it to him, but I still think it's a good option. There's Boston Scott, and they picked up Carrion Johnson in the off-season. But I see them more as backups than players that will take away from Sanders. The only wide receiver I want is Devonta Smith. Yeah, the first-round rookie, he was the Heisman winner. I think it might be like other first-rounders. He might take a game or two, but I think once he adjusts, he can start to put up some proper numbers. And I'd happily take him. I can see Hurts and Smith being like a sneaky connection there, something that will get you a lot of points unexpectedly. Jalen Rager's there, but he didn't do much for me last season from what I've seen. I think he's a wait and see. I don't want to spend a draft pick on someone who I want to wait and see about. I'd rather pick people in the draft I want or people in the draft I know I can use to get something. Tight ends, obviously Eagles run the most 2 tight end sets, and they got Goddard and Ertz. They've still got Goddard and Ertz this season. Ertz, he's a bit older now, and also he had all the off-season drama. So I'm going for Goddard as like the tight end 1. I'll put him as the main passing catching tight end. Ertz not leaving does eat to his fantasy premium a bit, but as they're upset with him, I still think Goddard will be the main choice. But Ertz is still there. He is a former Pro Bowler. He can still play well. If either one gets injured, the other one will get more value. So I'd pick either. But as I said, I think I'll go Goddard over Ertz. Kickers, defense, not for me on there. Off to the Steelers. Obviously, Big Ben. Last year was not a good year. It looked like it could be the start of his downfall. But obviously, it's come out that he had a lot of arm problems. from an injury or surgery or something like that. So by this point, it's all expected to have cleared up. So if it has, he'll be a good QB to have. Now they've got Najee Harris. They should have a run game going on. So it means he should be able to get a few more passes out, as teams won't be just going pass coverage every play. As I said, they got Najee Harris, the first round pick. He's going to be an every down back. So definitely I would take him as the team's RB1. No question about that. And he's, as far as I'm concerned, a much bigger upgrade over last season's options. So wide receivers, they've got Deontay Johnson, Juju Smith-Schuster, Chase Claypool. For me, they've all got equal fantasy appeal. I don't see much between them. I'm just listing them as the ADP is. So Johnson, Smith-Schuster, Claypool as the ADP. There goes 1, 2, 3. They've got tight end wise. They've got Eric Ebron and they've got the rookie Freiermuth. They're competing for tight end targets as well as competing with these 3 wide receivers. I don't fancy picking those tight ends. I don't see the value. I don't see them getting consistent fantasy value for me. Kicker, no interest there. Defense though, obviously they're such a good defense last year. I ran with them the whole season. I loved it. I'd do that again. They lost Bud Dupree, but they've still got TJ Watt and all the most I don't think they've lost anyone else big. So Watt and the gang's there. I would pick him as my number 1 defense. I think. Getting to the end now, so we've got the Seahawks. Russell Wilson, he's an elite QB. I don't think he has as much rushing upside he might have used to, but he's still got really good passing game, and he's got Metcalf and Lockett, so he's got the options there. There's a lot of potential points on the table here, so I would pick him in my elite range for quarterbacks. Chris Carson at running back, he's a starting running back. There was no question about picking him at running back last year. It was just sort of where would you pick him? Same again. Won't hesitate to pick him. Just where is the best to get the best value and the best range for him. Metcalf there, he's gone as elite for me. Like his speed's just insane. He's just intense. He's one of the top wide receivers. I'll happily pick him if I could get to him. I keep saying that about a lot of people. We'll just see what happens. Tyler Lockett, he's quite boom or bust. 1 week he'll get over 30, next week he'll get below 10. If you can start him in the right weeks, you're swimming. You're doing great. If you start in the wrong weeks though, it's a bit crap to be honest. So boom or bust. I'll put him down as a wide receiver 2 on the team anyway. Everett's supposed to be the tight end number 1 on the team. He's not piqued my interest, so I've just left him alone. Myers for the kicker. He's a name I remember from last season. Seahawks had a lot of shootouts, so I'm sure he had a lot of kicking opportunities, which is why I know him. If they've got the same again this year, he'll still have a lot of opportunities for kicking as well. And hence, I'm not picking the defense because I don't want to pick a T. I don't want to pick a D who's going to be involved in a lot of shootouts. If they're that leaky, they can just stay away. 49ers, another team I want to take a lot of players from. Quarterback-wise, I'm not picking Garoppolo because at any point Trey Lance could get the start. And also, they want to switch him in and out. So you could have half a drive of Garoppolo, half a drive of Lance, depending on situationally. I think Lance will eventually get the start, but I don't think it'll be this season. I think it'll be next season. But I'll put him on my list. I'll pick him as a backup because if Garoppolo goes down, Lance is next man up. And that could be the key to him getting constant starts. And he has a massive load of upside if he gets on the field. So, yeah, I'll definitely pick him in the draft if he's next one available and it's quite late on. Anyway, running backs, Raheem Mostert. I picked him last year. He was good for me. Even like the game he went down, he put up like an 80-yard touchdown run. He's got speed. I will happily take him. Obviously, I was interested in him in the year before, the 2019's playoffs, where he ran like 200 yards and destroyed the Packers. So yeah, I'll take him. I like him. We've got Trey Sermon. Instead of like a 1 and a 2, I think they've been talking as a 1A and a 1B. But he will be my running back 2 for the team. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. I don't know too much, but I'll pick him on about 2 range. There's another running back for the team, and I can't remember who it is who's off injured. Um, no, I really can't remember. If he comes back and he makes a difference, then, well, just have to play it by ear and see what happens. For wide receivers, I think Ayuk will be the top wide receiver on the team, followed by Deebo Samuel. They're both good, but Ayuk, I wanted him the minute I saw him hurdle a guy who was practically stood up straight last season. And there was a couple of blips, but he didn't disappoint me. I'd definitely take him this year, just for the same again. But yeah, I predicted to be the top receiver and Deebo Samuel to come second. Tight ends, George Kittle, he's elite. He could be challenging for the top, top tight end if he could just stay healthy. He was top 4 the 2 seasons previous when he played all 16 games. Last season he only played 8 games. I possibly would actually consider drafting him over Kelsey just because right at the end of the season in the fantasy playoffs he's got quite an easy matchups. Falcons, Bengals, Titans, Texans, something like that, all around the playoff time at the end of the season. And I'm pretty sure the Texans is week 17, which will be the championship game. And if they are such a terrible team this year as I think, that is, and having Kittle in that game would just be massive. Kickers, Robbie Gold. The guy last year was really into Robbie. He drafted him. He wouldn't trade him. He didn't want to get rid of him. He must know something I don't. So he's on my list to take. There must be something about him that I don't know. And defensive wise, 2019, 49ers finished third in fantasy for the defense. Last year they were 18th, but they lost Bosa. They had a couple of other key injuries to the team, and possibly there were players opting out who I don't know about. So I'll give them a chance this year. Now Bosa's back. I would pick them. I think they could be a top defense again. Especially championship games, if you've got them against Houston and Houston is really sucking, that'll be perfect. Right. Tampa Bay, as you can see, every player I would pick. They're returning with all their starters again, so their team is just as dangerous this year as it was last year. Now, Tom Brady could be considered elite. However, I think people tend to regress a bit. I've been told from MVP seasons or Super Bowl winnings. It's his second year with the team, but he is getting on age, even though he's ageless. I just don't think he'll be elite week in, week out. So I put him as the QB1 as a passing QB. But I fully expect him to show me up and just prove me wrong. If he does, I don't mind. Especially if I pick him, but I just don't think he'll be as elite for fantasy purposes as some of the other people. Running back wise is just a massive committee here. Ronald Jones, obviously, and Leonard Fournette from last season. Ronald Jones, everyone's expecting not to do good when Fournette showed up. He still did until we got to the back end of the season and the playoffs, and then suddenly Fournette was just going off and Ronald Jones was forgotten about. They've got to compete with each other. And now we've got the addition of Giovanni Bernard, who last year had an amazing stash on his picture with the Bengals, and now he's lost it. This picture upsets me, I tell you. But the one thing is, Bernard's got a clear-cut role. He's been in all the third down plays. He'll be able to pass him back because the other two can't catch. And I think that keys him into getting more time, more definitive time, if Tampa Bay actually have third downs than the other two. And I feel like I'd actually rather pick him over the committee. I don't want any of this committee, but if I had to pick one, I think I'll go for Bernard first. Just because I know he's getting that third down role. After that, it's a toss-up between the other two. Possibly just be who's available and whatever tells me ADP is the best. Using the Sleeper app, so just going off what they say for most of it. Wide receivers as well, they've got 3 hungry wide receivers to feed. Mike Evans obviously has 1,000-yard seasons the previous couple of seasons. No reason not to expect him to do it again. Chris Godwin last year wasn't as good as the season before that. Could have been because things are different, adjusting to a new quarterback. I definitely don't expect him to be Evans. I expect him to be wide receiver 2, but I'm putting him above Brown as a wide receiver 3 and Godwin as 2. Brown's got a lot of off-field and antics. that I feel like could interfere with him playing, possibly. He does have the connection with Brady though. Brady did bring him to the Bucks. Brady does like him. He could just go off and have a massive season, but I feel like something I don't want to draft him because I feel like there's a lot of games he won't get to play because something will happen outside of football. Tight ends, there's another tight end, I think OJ Howard, but they've got Gronk. Gronk obviously came back. He was adjusting last season, but you saw in the Super Bowl he caught 2 touchdowns. He's back to the Gronk and Brady show like they used to have at the Patriots. I would pick him as their tight end. Not a pass catching tight end because of the amount of they got running backs, the amount of receivers, but I would still pick him as a tight end 1. They are suck up. I don't know. I think it's Ryan, but Tampa Bay is going to score points. He'll kick the points. That's enough for me. He'll win the list. And the defense, every starter's back on D. They had a good D last year. I saw it firsthand when they just like completely shut down the Packers. So I would pick it. So 2 teams left. Tennessee Titans. Ryan Tannehill at QB. He's really improved. He had a good season last year. He's much better than what he was doing when he was at the Dolphins. This year he's now got Julio Jones as well. So that's a really big guy he can link up with. If he can sync up well with him, there's a lot of points on the table. He could throw a lot more TDs. He could possibly break into top 10 quarterback range. So I would draft him this season. Derrick Henry, elite running back. He's just a beast. He just runs over guys. He just runs through guys. You know, he doesn't even have that many passes, and he's still up there in PPR. If he just had a season of getting passed to, if he could catch quite a lot, he'd take over McCaffrey as the RB1 by far. Wide receiver wise, I'm going with Brown as the wide receiver 1 and Julio as the wide receiver 2. I think Jones just needs time to adjust to it. I think by the end of the season, Jones could have overtaken Brown, but I'd rather draft Brown as the wide receiver 1 for the team and Jones as wide receiver 2. I believe Brown's got a bit of youth on Jones as well. But time will tell. We'll wait and see. I put Ferguson down as tight end, as a tight end 1 for the team. He's a good backup option, but I don't expect him to get a lot of passing action. I don't have any desire for him. I will pick him up if I've run out of options to choose. I've got enough kickers and defense lists already, so I didn't even bother looking at Titans for either of those. Finally, last team, Washington football team. So Fitzpatrick's here. He did decently with the Dolphins last season before Tua took over. And even then, Tua couldn't hold him off. He kept coming back in. So he has got some talent behind him. And he has been, I'm sure he's been listed as a starter now. So I'd pick him. I don't think he's a top QB, but I think he's a decent QB at a time in a pinch. Could be worth streaming in another couple of games, maybe. Running back wise, Gibson. He was the favourite target of Haskins last season. I don't know if he gets many looks from Fitz, but I'll wait and see. If he does, good. If he gets more looks, great. I can't remember exactly how Fitzpatrick favours his people. Terry McLaurin. I can't see any real competition from the spot. Curtis Samuel should be on there, but he's missed a lot of time. I don't know if he's ready for the start of the season, so I won't look to pick him from the draft. He'll be a post-draft acquisition during the season. Logan Thomas, though, I'll put down as a passing tight end. I used him in the closing end of the season, and he had some okay scoring games. As I've said, I can't see many other options though, so I feel like he could also be involved in the passing game. Just be interesting to see how well Fitzpatrick plays. If the offense can catch up to being as good as their defense are, there could be a lot of points here just available. For the kicker, Hopkins, I'd take him as a streamer, but I need to see how many chances he'll get to kick week in and week out. I mean, yeah, I'd take him in the draft and then stream him from there. I don't know if I'd be happy about it, but if I'm having to pick him over, I must have really missed out on kickers in the draft. And Washington football team, defense, yes. They're just a good defense all around. Looking at ADP, they're going to be first off the board. They're not my first choice, but they're definitely going to finish top 5. Yeah, but that's it. That's every team, every player I would consider for the draft. That's not what I'm trying to do. So I've got 117 skilled players, 14 kickers, 14 defense on the list. Working it out, 15 players, 12 team PPR. You need 13 each, so 15 teams need 13 skilled players. Well, that's quite a lot, actually. No, what am I doing? 12 teams need 13 skilled players. 130. 156. So I should have a list of 156. I got 117, which is a bit short. But I've got no Saints on there. I've got no Broncos. This is even if the first 117 picks goes, I'm sure there'll be other people available who I know. And there's plenty of time between now and the start of the season, or well, our draft is in 3 days. There's plenty of time now between now and our draft to get a couple of players and pick them up. But yeah, so thanks for checking out, listening. Hopefully, this gave you a helpful hint into your draft, or just a helpful hint into how the mind of an amateur works, and you can just completely tell me I'm wrong about everything. When I start doing more videos, there'll be some couple of links here, so you can go and watch that. Apologies for the middle commercial break where it just went wrong. The laptop just suddenly went, "Oh, I'm dying," and I realised I didn't have the cable plugged in. And then turned off a split second. Mic went a bit funny. Camera got a bit funny. I'm hoping that it's still recording now, and I don't just stop and find out half a VOD, or I'll be quite upset. But yeah, thanks for checking this out, and hopefully I'll catch you soon.